In this chapter, we'll dive into the wonderful world of PHP functions. PHP has a huge range of built-in functions designed to perform predefined tasks, such as converting a string to uppercase, getting the dimensions of an image, sending an email, and so on. In this video, we'll look at the basics of working with functions. And in this file, functions.php is an example of a built-in PHP function. It's PHP version that reports the version of PHP that's running on your server. The first thing to note about all functions is that after the function name, you'll always get a pair of parentheses. The parentheses are like an operator that tells the function to execute its predefined task. But if I load this page into a browser, I get a blank screen, and that's because most functions return a value, but unless you do something with it, it's simply thrown away. So we could display the value by using echo in front of PHP version, and that will then display the value that's returned. So if I load that into the browser, it now displays the version of PHP that I'm running. That's okay if you don't want to use the value again, but more often than not, you'll want to save the value that is returned by a function. And you do that in exactly the same way that you assign any value to a variable with the assignment operator. So we can capture the return value of PHP version by creating a variable and then just using the assignment operator. And then that value will be available for use anywhere within the script. With PHP version, there's no need to add anything between the parentheses, but most functions expect you to pass one or more values as arguments. So let's see how that works. I'm going to create a variable to store my name, and then just imagine that my caps lock key has got stuck. Everything is in uppercase. To convert it to lowercase, I can use a built-in PHP function called str to lower or string to lower. So let's echo string to lower, and then we pass it name as the argument. Then I'm going to display a line break, and then the value of name. So if we save that and reload the page in the browser, there is the value that has been converted to lowercase, but here is the value of name. It's the original value of name and it hasn't been changed. To change the value of a variable when you pass it to a function, you normally need to assign the return value back to the original variable. Alternatively, you can assign the return value to a different variable, allowing you to preserve the original value as well as the amended one, and very often that's quite a useful thing to do. A really cool feature of PHP functions is the ability to pass one function as an argument to another function. String to lower has converted my name to lowercase, but ideally I want the first letter to be uppercase. And there's a built-in PHP function that does that. It capitalizes the first letter of a string, and it's called UCFirst. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to comment out lines 6 and 7, then add in a bit of extra space, and I'm going to reassign the value back to name, and then call the UCFirst function, and between the parentheses there, I'm going to add not name, but the string to lower function, and then I'm going to pass name to that nested function. And if we save that and reload the page in the browser, that has now converted my name to lowercase, but it's also got that uppercase first letter. So what has happened here is I've passed name as the argument to string to lower. That has given us a return value, and that return value has been passed immediately to the UCFirst function, and the return value of UCFirst is then captured in name. This type of construction can seem rather confusing when you're new to PHP, but it's a very common and very powerful aspect of the language, so it's something that you will encounter quite often. Some functions take optional arguments, so let's take a look at that. Switch to this other file here, strip_tags.php, and this defines a string called input, and it's the type of input that might have come from an online form, and then we simply display the value of input. If we look at this, it's got some HTML in there. It's also got some script tags, so that's JavaScript. If we load this into a browser, it immediately executes that JavaScript. Now this is fairly harmless, just saying gotcha, but it could really have been a malicious script. And you need to take great care when processing input that has come from an online form. You've no idea where it's come from. You could be subject to an attack. One way to deal with this type of problem is to use a function called strip_tags. So if we pass input to that function, strip tags, then save and reload the page in the browser. This time that JavaScript is not executed. We see alert gotcha here, but the JavaScript is not executed because if you right click and view page source, you can see that all of the tags have been stripped out. That's why we don't get the JavaScript executed, but nor do we get any of the HTML. And strip tags takes an optional second argument that will allow you to keep in some HTML tags. So let's just close that, and then we'll have a second argument to strip tags. So a comma, and the second argument is a string with the opening version of the tags that you want to keep. So we'll keep paragraph, and we'll keep A for the links. And if we then save that and reload this into the browser, now the HTML is preserved, so that link is still clickable. And if you click that, it'll take you to the lynda.com PHP tutorial. So please take a look at that. In most cases, functions don't change the original value of any variables passed to them as arguments, but there are some exceptions, and there's an example of that here in this file, sort.php. At the top of the page is an indexed array. It's not in alphabetical order, but if we pass the array to the sort function and then save and load this into a browser, it automatically sorts it in ascending order. And in fact, if you were to try to get a return value from the sort function, it wouldn't give you the sorted array, it would only give you Boolean true or false to say whether it's managed to sort it or not. This type of behavior is known as passing an argument by reference, and I'll discuss that in more detail later in this chapter. And there's another function which works in a similar way. It's called rsort, which does a reverse sort. So if we save that and reload the page in the browser, the array is now in reverse alphabetical order. We've only begun to scratch the surface of PHP functions. PHP has a vast number of built-in functions, and they perform a wide range of predefined tasks. The function name is always followed by a pair of parentheses. Most functions take one or more arguments that you pass to the function as a comma-separated list between the parentheses. In the vast majority of cases, the original value of variables used as arguments remains unchanged, so you need to display the return value immediately or capture it in a variable. It's important to know the type of return value to expect from a built-in function, and the best way to find out is to consult the excellent online PHP manual, and we'll look at that next.